The 49ers sure seem to have a lot of disgruntled ex-employees. I'm so sick of that. I got to get something like way flyer than that. What's up? I'm Grant Cohn. Welcome to Quality Control, sponsored by Prize Picks. It's Friday. I already played golf today. I played at Tilden with my friend Kevin. Shout out Kevin Ruma. He's going to be hosting with me, streaming with me at some point this year. He doesn't know it. He knows it yet, but it's going to happen. Played at Tilden. It was a great time. Shout out to Andy and Ann, who aren't married, but they were golfing together today, and they were just adorable. I was the best one out there, as always. I'm so good at golf. But we're not here to talk about my golf game, which is immaculate. We're here to talk about the 49ers, Jauan Jennings. He just took a shot at the 49ers. The Chargers social media team took a shot at the 49ers. I didn't take a shot at the 49ers yet. Will I? Probably not. I don't think I need to. Donte Whitner took a shot at the 49ers. I'm going to defend the Niners when it comes to Brandon Aiyuk, and then I'm going to talk about the worst call or decision ever made by a coach. Do you think it was made by a Niners coach? Do you think so? I don't know. Why would it? I mean, it's a Niners show, right? Okay, let's talk Jauan Jennings first. So Jauan Jennings has been a Minnesota Viking for a few days, and he's so pumped to be living in Minnesota, as anyone would be, but he still has the Niners on his brain. They drafted him. They developed him. He was here for 6 seasons, and then he cried on his final interview. It was touching. Wanted to come back. Sure, he didn't gauge his market correctly at all whatsoever. He wanted $25 million a year, but he would settle out of court right now for 25 cents. He ended up getting less than Mike Evans. And I wonder if the Niners even gave Jauan Jennings another offer to try to match what Minnesota had. I'm sure they offered him more than Minnesota at one point, but then they got Mike Evans, and then they didn't want Jauan Jennings anymore. They didn't need Jauan Jennings because they have Mike Evans. So here's what Jauan Jennings thinks of the 49ers. It's subtle. This is on Instagram. Colin Cowherd said something, and this was posted on The Herd on Instagram if you want to check it out yourself. I guess he had a little clip where he said, that sounds like a 68-year-old insurance salesman who drinks too much. It does not sound like a Super Bowl champion. I don't know what exactly the rest of the quote was, but this is supposed to be on the Niners roster and schedule. And then at the top, there's a pinned comment that says the Niners are heading in the wrong direction at Colin Cowherd. And then it says at the bottom, who liked this post on Instagram? And guess who? Jauan Jennings liked it. He likes the sentiment that the Niners are being run like they're being run by a guy who's a 68-year-old insurance salesman who drinks too much, and they're heading in the wrong direction. Now, I mean, how much stock do you put into that? Obviously, a player who didn't get the extension he wanted, is on a different team, is going to think that the Niners are heading in the wrong direction. But does he have a point? I mean, first of all, it's petty. But the Niners are petty, right? The Niners are being petty with Brandon Aiyuk. And so now Jauan Jennings is being petty. He didn't make a whole post about it. He just liked a post about it. Not some people found it. But is he right? Are the Niners going in the wrong direction? It's just, we talk about the Niners core. To me, it's essentially 6 players. Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, George Kittle, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner. It's an old core. The average age of those players for this upcoming season is going to be 31. And Jauan Jennings is going to be 29. So he would bring the average age of the core down. He's not in the core. He wasn't, and now he isn't. But you have this older team, and you're trying to make it younger, and so you get rid of Jauan Jennings and replace him with Mike Evans, who's going to be 33 this year. You add him to a core that's already average age is 31. And these guys, Christian McCaffrey played a ton last year, probably not going to play as much this year. Trent Williams, 38. Brock Purdy missed 7 games. George Kittle missed 6 games and probably isn't going to play much this year. Nick Bosa missed 14 games, had a season-ending injury. Fred Warner has a season-ending injury. So it's like, I don't know if that's what Colin Cowherd was referring to when he was talking about they have a roster that seems like that it was put together by a 68-year-old insurance salesman who drinks too much. But I could understand Jauan Jennings being like, "Look, man, I understand you guys wanting to get rid of me. It's a business, and he's not the best wide receiver in the league. I think he even knows that. I think he understands that he's the third best wide receiver on the Vikings. But it's not necessarily cut and dry that Mike Evans is a replacement over Jauan Jennings in 2026. In 2024, he was better than Jauan Jennings, and every year before that. But now, he wasn't better than Jauan Jennings last year. He wasn't better. I'm talking about Mike Evans. He wasn't better than really any wide receiver on the Bucs last year, which is why he's not there anymore. And they said they tried to bring him back. I wonder how much they really wanted him back. I think they're happy to have him gone. They don't need him anymore. So if you were going to replace Jauan Jennings with Jordan Addison, I'd get that because Jordan Addison is younger than Jauan Jennings, better than Jauan Jennings. If you're going to get rid of Jauan Jennings, who's good but not great, it's not like he's overpaid. The Vikings got him for a great price. If you're going to replace Jauan Jennings, you'd like to get someone better and younger than him. And I guess that's where Dejon Stribling comes in. But I just don't understand how Dejon Stribling became his Jauan Jennings replacement when, frankly, he's just Jordan Watkins with a little more height and maybe a better blocking highlight reel. That's the big difference. He's not Jauan Jennings. As if there's multiple Jauan Jennings in the league. Isn't Jennings a one of one? Who else plays like him? He's not great, but he's unique. Every team doesn't have a Jauan Jennings. And yeah, like, is he beat up? He missed a couple games last year. He's on the injury report almost every week. He did hold out. It seemed like last year he had a calf injury. So either he was injured, he missed the offseason last year. He missed training camp. He could do it again this year, although I don't think so. I think he'd be real motivated to create a good impression with the Vikings. But he essentially plays because he's in his prime. And he wasn't really a starter until 2024. I mean, he was over there getting like 35 targets a year before that. And now he's going to go be the number 3 receiver on the Vikings. It's going to be a big addition for them. It's going to make them a lot better. And they're going to have to face Jauan Jennings this year. So I just think it's interesting. I think, why do the Niners have so many disgruntled former players? It doesn't, like, some of them aren't. Right? Richard Sherman has nothing but good things to say about the Niners. Some guys, Joe Staley, I feel like they were taken care of by the Niners. Other guys feel like they're just never appreciated and pushed out. And I do think it's funny. The reason that me and Kyle Juszczyk got into it a couple of years ago is I was doing a show with Tom Walsh, and this was back when, Jauan had asserted himself as a starter in 2024 early, and Brandon Aiyuk was coming off, the offseason where he held out, and Debo was there, and you had 3 wide receivers, and I was like, Tom, what would you do? Who should start? Which 2 wide receivers should start? Because I was thinking Jennings was better than Aiyuk at that point. And Tom's so smart. He's like, well, how about you start all 3 of them and put the fullback on the bench? I mean, what's he really doing for you at this point in his career? And I was like, right. Why pick? You have these 3 great wide receivers. Why don't you sort of build a new offense around them? That's what Sean McVay would do, right? He looked up midway through last season, saw he had all those tight ends and figured out a new offense with all those tight ends. That was Tom Walsh's idea. It's what you should do as a coach, right? You tailor your system and your scheme to your players. A week later, Juszczyk came out and told people I was standing too close to him. No one wants to stand so close to Kyle Juszczyk. Anyway, he didn't like the idea of getting benched for a wide receiver. But he's really preventing better players from being on the field. And it's funny how the Niners have taken care of Juszczyk for so long, right? Got to make sure that Juszczyk feels taken care of. Got to make sure that his wife is front and center, gets the red carpet, gets a really nice luxury suite. And meanwhile, Jauan Jennings gets pushed out. Never really was part of the crew like Juszczyk was, even though he was demonstrably a better player. If you think, I mean, who do you think was a better player for the 40? Who's a more impactful player for the 49ers? Kyle Juszczyk or Jauan Jennings? And yet the Niners, Juszczyk's going to be on the Niners for 10 years. He's going to be on that 10-year wall. That's really important to the Niners. It's important for him to get on that wall. Well, as important as winning a Super Bowl because he's still on the team. But Jennings didn't make it. Even though ultimately all it cost was 1 year, $13 million to bring him back. 1 year, $8 million with incentives up to $13 million. And the Niners were like, no, we'd like to bring in someone who's older and more expensive than you. This is the substation team. This is the team with high EMF levels. So Jauan Jennings took a shot, and that's not the only person that took. The Chargers took a shot as well, and it was really funny. So why don't I share the screen so we can all check this out. First of all, let me get this. So this is what they did. They had their little schedule release thing, and they did it in like a Halo theme. It's not going to be as funny because I'm explaining it. You can watch it for yourself. Each little week is like a mission. That was the theme. And the Niners week is called Soft Tissue Graveyard. That's what they call week 15, the Chargers. Soft Tissue Graveyard. And then in italics underneath, survive high EMF levels. That's the mission. And that's the location, Soft Tissue Graveyard, a.k.a. Levi's Stadium, the butt of the joke of every NFL team. Let's check it out. Is it on the screen? Yes, it's on the screen. This is
week 15 versus the 49ers.
This is their practice facility. These are the Niners. Survive one practice. That's the mission. And this is just the Niners. They're trying to get to the game against the Chargers.
Survive one.
And then I love it. So, first of all, Bosa didn't make it. He went down. Substation got him. And then on the top, you got Niners being, hey, Brandon, we should catch up soon. Diabolical. That's Kittle. And then the Niners saying, you there? Triple question mark. Kittle flying through the air. And now the Niners are injured before the game even starts. That is what the rest of the league thinks. Now, it is kind of rich coming from the Chargers because if any team has as big of an injury issue as the Niners, it's the Chargers. But at least they don't have a substation they can blame it on. At least it's just because their coaches wear down their players too much like it's 1987. At least that's the reason. With the Niners, they don't even practice that hard. It's just soft tissue graveyard. I think it's funny that the Niners got roasted harder in this schedule release thing than the Patriots did, than Mike Vrabel did. Like, that was off limits, but the Chargers were like, Also, the Brandon Aiyuk thing, making fun of the Brandon Aiyuk thing, like, the idea that the Niners would call up Brandon Aiyuk after voiding his guarantees and probably leaking to the media that they voided his guarantees, and then he left. Hey, Brandon, how come you won't return my call? Where'd you go? Not that the Niners necessarily I'm going to defend them with the Aiyuk situation a little later, but I think it's the rest of the league is looking at them like, what are you doing? You alienated one of your best players who's still in his 20s. God forbid you have a good player in his 20s. You alienated him. He's probably going to go to the Washington Commanders. You're trying to call him up. He won't call you back. And you're like holding up your hands like, why? What's up? I've never seen anything. I've never seen any behavior like this before. I don't get it. Who is this Brandon character? So that's hilarious. The Chargers are laughing at the Niners' mishandling of Brandon Aiyuk, and then they're laughing at the fact that they can't even get through practice without getting injured because they practice next to that thing that no other team in the NFL would subject itself to, but the Niners say it's not a big deal. So God love the Los Angeles Chargers. I feel like more teams should roast each other. I feel like every team, every franchise should have a social media team that is devilish with its humor. The Niners put out a schedule release that was visually impressive, for sure. I don't know who put it together. I don't want to knock anyone. I don't know what the assignment was, but it felt like they missed the assignment. The assignment is be funny, make fun of yourself, and definitely make fun of your opponents. And the Niners did none of those, which really isn't. I don't think that surprising considering they're clearly one of the more sensitive teams. I mean, they're as concerned with controlling the narrative about themselves as they are with, winning. So they put together a pretty lame schedule release. Meanwhile, the Chargers absolutely nailed him. And it's like the Niners, they brought in that independent researcher who they wouldn't say what his name was or what his background was. Of course, you can't find out anything about him because he didn't want to actually attach his name to that. And they said it's a big nothing burger. Well, sure. But if someone gets hurt in practice this year, you think people aren't going to mention this? You think this is really going away? I mean, I don't think other players, other teams stop thinking about it, or even the Niners' own players stop thinking about it because John Lynch said they looked into it. So Chargers, and I love that's Harbaugh's team. Like he has a firsthand experience with the substation and the practice facility. He didn't even like the grass here. Remember that? And then they ran him off like he was the problem, and now he's over with the Chargers winning, but not necessarily more than Kyle. And if you don't think that Jim is, as petty as Kyle, you're wrong. Jim wants to have a better record than Kyle. Jim wants to prove 10 years later after getting run out of here that the Niners made the wrong decision and that Kyle's not as good as him. And injuries will be one way that Jim can have a better record than Kyle. So I wonder if the social media team ran that by Jim Harbaugh first and he was like, I like it. Or if those references are over his head or if he doesn't care. I would imagine the head coach of a team would want to care, would want to know what beefs the social media team is potentially creating. Wouldn't you want to know? Hey, don't make a joke about Mike Vrabel. I like Mike Vrabel. Like he could say that. Or don't make a joke about the substation. I'm big friends with Jed York, but he didn't say that. So those two people taking shots at the Niners, I guess we should get into another one. How about Donte Whitner? I talked about this a few days ago, but Donte Whitner took a shot, not at the Niners, but at Ji'Ayir Brown. And it spawned this whole debate online of whether Whitner should have talked about it publicly on his podcast. And a lot of good points made on both sides. So let me try to weigh in here. I can see why people feel Whitner was kind of lame for making this public. But who am I to say anything, considering I was in the same exact situation with Javon Kinlaw, kind of. Except Kinlaw checked me, quote unquote, face to face. Ji'Ayir Brown, I don't know how he got Donte Whitner's number, but got it, called him. Kind of weird, but same idea. Hey, man, you talk shit. I didn't like it. What are you going to do about it? Fine. What did I do? It's like, all right, you want to check me privately and you want to be disrespectful and maybe embarrass me. Like, Ji'Ayir Brown didn't embarrass Donte Whitner in front of people. I felt like Kinlaw embarrassed me in front of the whole team and all the media people. So I was, looking for retribution. So I went straight to I ran to Twitter, I ran to YouTube, I made a video. I was like, hey, you want to make this like a schoolyard, bullying type of thing? Like, you might not think I'm a good bully, but I could bully too, man. You try to bully me, I'm gonna make you cry. Watch this. So I shouldn't have done that. That was a mistake. And I've learned from that. I've also had experiences in locker rooms where players have come up to me much more respectfully and wanted to talk about my coverage of them. And I didn't make an instant reaction to so-and-so checking me in the locker room because I do think that's a breach of like a man-to-man thing. So I could see I wasn't on the call. Maybe there was some maybe if Ji'Ayir Brown had been like, look, dude, I respect you. We played the same position, same team. You got a job to do as a media guy. I'm not telling you not to keep it real, but I feel like you're being harsh on me, man. I feel like every time you talk about me, it's something negative. You never have anything nice to say. Why do you have it out for me? I've had players say that to me. Jaquaski Tart said that to me, like almost verbatim. Hey, man, how come every time you talk about me, it's something negative? You never have anything nice to say? And I'm like, damn, you might be right. Because I don't feel that. Like, I don't feel like get Tart off the team. He freaking sucks. But I guess I sometimes you don't even realize it. I'm like, all right, man, you're right. I will go out of my way to balance the coverage out because I think that's only fair. So maybe if Ji'Ayir Brown had approached Donte Whitner like that, then Whitner should have kept his mouth shut. But it doesn't sound like Brown did. It doesn't sound like Brown said, look, man, all due respect, yada, yada, yada. It sounded like he was like, yo, keep my motherfucking name out of your mouth. It sounded like more like that. And I think if you approach someone that's not your friend hostily, in a hostile manner, I mean, I think that's on the record. And again, I wouldn't have if I could go back and do the Javon Kinlaw thing again, I wouldn't handle it the way I handled it. But I did handle it that way. And I'm not that mature. And I'm not a killer, but don't push me. And, I feel like that's everyone's attitude, right? Like, how poised are we? So I feel like I'm on Whitner's side. I don't think he did anything wrong. And I think it's important that he did this too. I think if anyone could make Ji'Ayir Brown better, maybe it's this interaction. Maybe it's Whitner. Maybe because Ji'Ayir Brown was good as a rookie. He was. And they spent a third round pick on him. He's a big investment. They need him to be good. He's still a starter here. And he regressed big time. He was not good his second year. He didn't even freaking start his third year. He got his job back because Siegel gave up like 100% completion percentage, and he was subpar. Or as Whitner would said, he played like shit. That's what Whitner said. And Whitner's an expert. I would just quote Whitner. And the worst thing about Ji'Ayir Brown is he on the record, when he was playing nickel and Marquise Siegel was playing safety, he complained in the locker room on the record and said he should be playing because he's a top 5 safety in the league. Look it up. It's like, man, I admire when professional athletes are their biggest believe. You have to be your biggest, cheerleader and believer. You can't think, man, I suck because I played like shit the last 2 years. You can't say that. Okay, I put out some bad tape, but I'm not, that doesn't define me, and I'm still improving, and I'm putting in the work, and the best is yet to come. Like, yeah, we want you to think all of that, but I'm a top 5 safety while you're not even a top 2 safety on your own team. It was good for Whitner to reveal that that Brown really thinks this. He didn't just say it in the locker room. He says it on private phone calls to safeties who were in the NFL and know what Pro Bowl safety, top 5 safety performance looks like. So not only are you lying to yourself, but you're lying to Whitner. And he called you out publicly. And frankly, maybe some of your coaches should have the last couple of years. Because it seems like this guy's been a little coddled and it hasn't helped because he hasn't improved. So maybe it takes Donte Whitner saying publicly that Ji'Ayir Brown is quote unquote fucking delusional for him to be not delusional. Take a real hard look in the mirror, accept who he is as a player, and get better. Maybe this is the best thing that ever happened to Ji'Ayir Brown. I'm completely on Donte Whitner's side on this one. And I'm really down on Ji'Ayir Brown because of how this happened. I'll give him the chance that he might completely change because of this. Like, it was a wake up call, but I don't think he's going to take it as a wake up call. Frankly, do you? I think we're past that. I don't think he'll ever actually pick up the call on the wake up call. Again, I've been pissing off players since Donte Whitner was on the Niners. And I'm not that tough. I roast players sometimes. I'm right sometimes and I'm wrong sometimes, but like, this is sports commentary. It's a lot more prevalent, common on the East Coast, this type of criticism. But it comes with the territory. And I think it reveals a lot about a young player, how they respond to it. If you think someone's wrong about you and doesn't understand how good you are, and you get mad about it to the point where you need to say something to that person or call them up and check them and be rude, that probably means that you're not as confident about yourself as you think you are. That probably means that you think deep down he's right about you. And you can't prove him wrong on the field, so you gotta argue with him and change his mind verbally, which is the weakest thing you could do. And again, I have experience with like I used to criticize Dante Pettis a lot. Called him a bust. He came up to me in the locker room and asked, "How do you know I'm a bust?" It's only been 2 years in the league. And I thought that was a fair question. But at the same time, I came back to him the next day and I said, "You know, I guess I don't have a good answer for you. Uh, I don't know exactly what the definition of a bust was." I was trying to be nice. And he said, "Then why the fuck did you say that? I wasn't prepared for that." And I thought that was disrespectful. So I snack. I'm a jerk. You want to be a jerk? I'm a jerk. And I'm pretty quick verbally because I went to UCLA and I was an English major and I didn't play sports. And this is what I do at a professional level. So I was like, "I don't know, Dante. I've seen you play a lot of football, man." He didn't have a comeback to that one. "I don't know, Dante. I've seen you play a lot of football, man, both in games and in practices." I remember Garrett Selleck was on the team. He looked at me with his mouth open, like, "Did you just fucking say that to him?" Yeah, I did. And look at him. I mean, look what happened to his career. He never could prove the haters wrong. And I think ultimately he knew that the criticism was right about him. And it must hurt. You were second round pick. They thought you were going to be Odell Beckham Jr. You're not Odell Beckham Jr. Um, but compare him to Jimmy Ward. Jimmy Ward was a first round pick for the Niners, and they played him in nickel, and they moved him to safety, and they moved him to corner, and they moved him to nickel. And he never really had a spot, and he never really was like a big time, you know, playmaker, forcing fumbles and picking off passes. And it didn't seem like he was worth the first round pick. So, me, who I don't know so much ball, I used to make fun of Jimmy Ward all the time, especially when I was doing film breakdowns. I was like, "Oh, look at Jimmy. Watch Jimmy. Here's Jimmy not making a play. Oh, look at Jimmy getting real close to making a play." I used to have like a running joke, like the Jimmy Ward almost play of the week. Look at Jimmy Ward coming close to doing something special. And I thought it was funny. My sense of humor is kind of cruel, but I thought it was funny. And the thing about Jimmy thought it was funny. That's how I knew Jimmy was going to prove me wrong. Jimmy thought it was hilarious. He was like, "Man, Grant, he just doesn't get it, but he's funny. He just doesn't get it, but he's funny." I was like, "All right, Jimmy." And it was like, damn, man, he knows something. He knows something I don't know. Like, none of this phases him at all. And then I think Robert Saleh may have nudged. He's like, "Hey, man, do you see how I use this guy? You see how I use it? I'm putting a man to man on the tight end. You notice none of the tight ends ever catch any passes against us? Do you know why? Do you understand? Oh, he erases the tight end on third down. Got it." Took me about 5 years to figure out exactly why all these coaches like Jimmy Ward, but that was it. He's probably the best tight end man-to-man cover safety I've ever seen. I mean, and then when I really focused on it, you could see it in practice. He was shut down George Kittle, and then he ended up coming on my show. And if you go back and watch, this was like 5 years ago, me interviewing Jimmy Ward. He was cool, but I think a lot of it was him smiling like, "Yeah, man, look at how I won this dude over." He was my biggest critic, and now look at him. And Jimmy Ward ended up having a very successful, long NFL career. And he always knew he would. And the criticism just amused. He got a ton of criticism. He was one of the original first round pick busts. Ji'Ayir Brown has it easy compared to Jimmy Ward. Ji'Ayir Brown's a third round pick. No one really cares. Calling people up. Jimmy Ward didn't have the time. He just knew people would see it his way eventually. And that's how the best players are, even ones that don't have instant success. They just have a feeling that you're going to see it their way eventually. I remember Spencer Burford came up to me after the Super Bowl a couple of days after in the locker room. So like, "Grant, thank you. You make me better." And I was like, "Man, I've been talking hella shit about Spencer Burford." But at the time, he was like 21 years old, 22. I was like, "This guy is going to make it." And I'm not saying he's the best guard in the world, but he just got a second contract. So there's a way to handle these things. And Brown handled it like the kind of guy who's not gonna be in the league or not gonna be a starter much longer. So I hope he, thinks about that and starts handling things differently. Maybe take Donte Whitner's advice and play better. Okay. I have a thought. Well, before I get to it, let me take some super chats. Jewish guy says, "You do gotta change that intro. Larry has better intro, outro than all cover 4 members." Fuck! All right, I'll work on it. Jewish guy says, "Tom Jensen, next GM." Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Finance Bro says, I think Raheem is will run the Legion of Boom Seahawks defense, ran it in terms of the defensive fronts, 4-3 over under height as a stand-up linebacker on the line. Mike Hill, more 4-eye 5 tech, and Bosa in a 7 tech. All right, I want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about this. Okay, wait a second. Okay. Why the Cowboys didn't want Osa Odighizuwa? Isn't it interesting that the Niners' best move of the offseason, universally regarded as a trade for Osa Odighizuwa? A lot of people are like, yeah, they added some older players, some guys, some one-year prove-it deals, and some guys coming off injury. But that Osa trade, man, the third-round pick for Osa Odighizuwa, are you freaking kidding me? And I feel that way. But there's a reason the Cowboys didn't want him anymore. They're definitely transforming their defense, and it may or may not work. But I feel like we got to look at defensive trends in the league. I like looking at trends in the NFL. For a while, the trend was a 3-4 defense with a 5-man front. That's the Vic Fangio-based defense. And that's what the Rams run to this day. And if you have a 5-man front for your base defense, your defensive tackles don't have to be that big because they're not going to get double teamed that much. They're going to be one-on-one most of the time. That 5-man front creates a lot of one-on-one matchups by alignment. So you can have Osa Odighizuwa weighing, 294. But chances are your run defense isn't going to be that great. I mean, the Cowboys' run defense has been bad for a while, and they wanted to make that a priority. So the trend used to be have a 5-man defensive front, guys who can all get up the field, get after the quarterback. Eagles did it for a while. Rams do it. And in that front, you can have smaller defensive linemen. But what the Seahawks are doing, and I think what the big trend now is in the league is if you can play your nickel defense all the time, that's what you want to do. Against whatever. 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends. You want to play your nickel defense all the time. You don't want to have a 5-man front. You want to have 5 DBs on the field. You want to have as fast of a defense as possible. But the only way you can pull that off is if you can stop the run with a light box in a 4-man front. If you can stop the run with a 4-man front in a light box, 2 deep safeties, now you're in business. And if you can generate a pass rush with that 4-man front too, now you might have the best defense in football. If you have some legit speed behind it, that's what the Seahawks are all about. And that's what it seems like the Cowboys are trying to create. They have Quinnen Williams. They have Kenny Clark. Those are 2 big defensive tackles who can, anchor against double team blocks. Won't get pushed out of the – that's what the Seahawks have. They have Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy, 2 big defensive tackles who also aren't just, space-eating run stuffers. They're also pass rushers. They're 2 of the best players on the team. Same for the Cowboys. Quinnen Williams, Kenny Clark, 2 of the best players on the team. And they didn't want Osa Odighizuwa anymore because they're not trying to have that kind of a defense, a base defense. You don't want to be in base defense because as soon as you bring out your 5-man front and your base defense, what's the offense going to do in 2026? Even if they have 3 tight ends on the field, they're going to pass. And you're going to be playing some zone defense with a bunch of linebackers dropping into coverage, and you're going to get diced the fuck up. That's what's going to happen. So you play your nickel. What are teams going to do in the NFL these days? They're going to run. You're pretty much dictating what they're going to do. You play nickel on first down, offenses are going to come out and, base personnel, 21, 12, 13, and run the ball. And if you can stop the run from that look, you're going to win the game. That's what the Cowboys are trying to replicate. I mean, isn't that what you should try to be replicating if that's what's winning Super Bowls? It's even kind of what the Eagles do now. They used to have that base defense with the 5-man front, but now they have Cooper DeJean. They play a lot of nickel. So Osa, good player. But isn't he kind of like similar to another good player who didn't quite work out in the Niners wide nine defense? Isn't he kind of similar to Javon Hargrave in the sense that they're both smaller, quick, pass rushing three techs who are not built to anchor all game against double team blocks in the run game the way Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy and Kenny Clark and Quinnen Williams are? It seems to me the Niners have some D tackles who can rush the quarterback and some D tackles who can stop the run. But the real, you know, skill set that unlocks the Seahawks style defense is two great D tackles who can do both. If you have that, chances are, and like, isn't that what the Niners had with Vic Fangio long time ago? They had Justin Smith and Ray McDonald. Bit smaller, but super strong. And they were great against the run, and they could push the pocket. So Donte Whitner never had to play in the box. Golson never had to play in the box. They could play 9, 10, 11 yards off the ball. And the Niners had historically great run defense. This was 15 years ago. So Osa's going to push the pocket. He's going to get 20, 25 quarterback hits. That's definitely excellent. You need that. But I don't think the Niners are necessarily going to have this nickel defense that I just want to see what their run defense is going to look like with Osa. Because when Saleh came back, he got rid of Hargrave. They got rid of Malik Collins. He wanted to have a great run defense. Like, wasn't that pretty much what he was trying to build last year? A run defense that had a 4-man front and a light box. He wasn't trying to bring a safety down. He wanted to have great run defenders across the line. That's why he drafted Mykel Williams, who's not a pass rusher. That's why he drafted Alfred Collins, who's not a pass rusher. So now you're going away from that and you're bringing in a defensive tackle who's not a run defender. And he's going to be a 3-down player. It didn't work with Hargrave. It could work with Osa. I don't know. But again, there's a reason the Cowboys didn't want him anymore. Let's do some prize picks. Let me get the prize picks on the screen, though. Do I have prize picks? No. Where are the prize picks at? Here they are. All right, now it's time. Get them on the screen. Prize picks. Okay. Let me tell you my lineups from the past. Have I won recently? The answer is yes. Yesterday, me and my pops did a little Giants. Only one we got wrong was Ramos. We thought he'd K. Willie Adamas, did he K? Twice. Devers, once. Hell yeah. Ramos didn't K. I feel like, if you get 4 out of 5, that's why we flex right here. That's why we flex in the Cohn zone, because it's tough to get 5 out of 5, but getting 4 out of 5 is tough for most people, but not for me. Well, I threw a little basketball in there, got that wrong. Maybe I should stick to baseball, but I got 500 on that one. I wanted to show that one. All right, let's try again. Let's go to the board. Let's go baseball. Let's see what's popping today. Are the yes, Giants A's. Let's go. Okay, pitcher strikeouts. Tyler Mahle. 4.5 for Tyler Mahle. Okay, sure. I could say yes. And then Aaron Savali. I don't know your name, but 3.5. Easy. You're going against the Giants. How about wait a second. Demons and Goblins. Let's go. No, I don't want to go straight up Goblin. How about 4.5? You're going against the Giants, man. This is easy money. There you go. 4.5. And then we'll go hitter strikeouts. I was liking that one yesterday. Where you at? Where's Adamas? Yes. And Devers. All day. And then should we go hits or rise? Oh, yeah. He's not going hitless 2 days in a row. Bingo. Arise. That's my play. Putting down 20. Should I flex it? Yes. That's my lineup. Boom. Go to prizepicks.com or download it on your phone. Use promo code HMA. Play $5 and get 50 instantly in lineups when you use promo code HMA. Yeah. All right. Let's talk something else. Did you guys notice that the first half of the Niners season is way easier than the second half of the Niners season? I think it's interesting how the Niners season, how the schedule unfolded because they get 3 home games back to back to back after coming back from Australia. Doesn't that seem kind of like the NFL trying to make things right with the Niners? Like, look, we know you don't want to go to Australia. We know it's a burden, so we're going to give you a month to like reacclimate yourself to California time because they got those 3 straight home games. Then they got a road game in Seattle. So again, they get to stay in their time zone. Then they come back and they have a home game against the Commanders. And it's not until week 7 that they got to go to Atlanta. So it seems to me that one, the NFL did this as a favor to the Niners for the Niners. But two, I wouldn't be surprised if the Niners put in a request because teams can say, like, look, if you want us to go to Australia, and it seemed like Jed and, the ownership does want the team to go to Australia. If you want us to go to Australia, could you do something on the back end to help us out? And this is what they did. The 3 straight home games plus the road game to Seattle plus another home game. So 5 straight games on the West Coast. From what I've heard, the Niners in the past have put in requests with the league to not have home games in September. Day games in particular because it's so hot and they don't like that storyline. They don't, want something bad to happen. I mean, there have been people get heat strokes in the stands. So it seemed like instead of requesting no hot Levi's games in September this year, they said, all right, we'll take the hot Levi's games. We just don't want to leave the West Coast. So one, it's because they were in Australia, but two, if the Niners did, and I'm right, if I'm right that the Niners requested to have these games, these home games, it does seem like it benefits them to have their easier games in the first half, not just because of the Australia game, but because Bosa won't be Bosa the first half of the season. If he's ever Bosa again, he'll be rusty the first half of the season. Isn't it nice to get to face Miami Dolphins, Arizona Cardinals, and the Commanders? But really, like the first, yeah, you got to face the Rams. That's rough. But the next 2 games at home against Miami, at home against the Cardinals, I mean, that's a 2-1 start. If that's not a 2-1 start, the Niners are in huge trouble. I think most people would expect a 2-1 start, maybe even a 3-0 start, 3-0. And that's going to be without Kittle, without Michael Williams. If this schedule had been put together in reverse with all the tough games at the beginning, the Niners could fall out of contention before Kittle even gets back. So I wonder if the Niners like, hey man, could we please, if you're gonna send us to Australia, could we get some home games and could we like get the Dolphins and the Cardinals early on so we could like bank some wins while a lot of our injured players are out. I just feel like no excuses this year, man. Yeah, you got to go to Australia, but and yeah, you have the most miles of travel of any team. Suck it up, dude. You also have all these home games to start. You also have this cupcake schedule while Kittle's out and Bosa's getting his feet underneath him and Michael Williams is out. You have you know a, a 0 rest differential. It's right in the middle. Suck it up. No excuses. Make the freaking playoffs. Go farther than last year or further or farther. It would be further in this case. All right, I got something else I want to talk about. I was talking about this with Tom Walsh. If you missed the show, I thought he made a great point. I've been over here defending Brandon Aiyuk and saying like, oh, it's wrong how the Niners are treating him and it's petty and why are they doing this to Brandon and what does this mean about their relationship with Brandon? There's another way to look at it. Tom brought it up. What if this has nothing to do with Brandon? This could have everything to do with the Washington Commanders. I mean, it's no secret that Aiyuk wants to go to the Commanders and they want him and that he's going to play for the Commanders this year. So why is it in the 40? Why is it the Niners' burden? Why is it their responsibility to do the Commanders a solid and cut Brandon Aiyuk today so that the Commanders have all offseason to get him acclimated on the team, in the locker room, in the playbook, on the field, get him in shape. I mean, they played the Niners week 6 in Levi's. Why don't they fly Brandon Aiyuk to Washington, pack his bags, pay for the limo, just so that Brandon can have as good of a game as possible in week 6 on national television in front of the Niners home fans. Let's make it as easy. Let's facilitate Brandon and the Commanders shoving it right up their asses. Let's do that. I get it. Because there's a real chance that when Brandon goes to Washington, eventually he'll get in shape and play pretty well with Jaden Daniels. And that's a scary day for the 49ers. I mean, they saved money. They got out of the contract. They hated the contract. They replaced him with Mike Evans, who's 39, 33. And they're feeling pretty good about it right now, but they're just one hamstring injury away to Mike Evans to regretting all of this. And if Brandon Aiyuk plays well, people will look at the whole Brandon Aiyuk situation like, hey, man, you didn't have to do any of that shit. He missed a rehab assignment. Oh, he looks healthy now. Maybe you just overreacted. And maybe it wasn't about that. Maybe you just want to get out of the contract. So you found a loophole and got out of the contract. And now, Brandon's back playing well. And you got someone way older limping around. That could happen. Also, Brandon could be awful. He could never play again. There's a wide range of possibilities here. I understand the Niners being like, we don't necessarily want what's best for Brandon, but it's not even about that. We don't necessarily want what's best for the Washington Commanders. And even though we're cool with Adam Peters, and he could call up Kyle Shanahan and say, pretty please, we don't necessarily owe Adam Peters any favors. And if we gave him a favor, we'd look like freaking idiots. So at first I was saying, when Brandon was in Egypt's land, let my Brandon go. Now I'm like, you know what? If you want to hold on to him until right before the season and then cut him, I get it. Because ultimately, what the Niners have to do, they have to make every decision from the prism of what's best for our team. And you could argue that it's not cutting Brandon Aiyuk right now. It's cutting him in September. I get that. Now, it is going to be a distraction. I'm still going to talk about Brandon Aiyuk every single time I can. Brandon Aiyuk. But that's just something the Niners have to live with. All right, last thing I'm going to get out of here. What is the worst call or decision ever made by a coach ever in the history of sports? It's got to be a lot of contenders. There's a lot that pop into your mind. You know what I mean? Not giving the ball to Marshawn Lynch at the goal line. That's a big one. Although it was second down and you figured you were going to get a chance to give him another. I have a contender. I think the worst call or decision ever made by a coach was Kyle Shanahan in the Super Bowl, winning the coin flip in overtime and asking for the ball. Now, I think this was the worst call ever. I think it lost the Super Bowl for the 49ers. I think you could argue that whoever had the ball second was going to win that Super Bowl in overtime. It's not like the Chiefs were a freaking juggernaut. It's not like they hit this gear in that Super Bowl where they couldn't be stopped the way they did in the first Super Bowl against the Niners, where they scored like 21 unanswered points in about 6.5 minutes in the that's what they were like before COVID. In 2024, they were a pretty frumpy team. And they scored at the end because they had the ball second and they converted on fourth down. And they would have went for it on for 2 if they had to. What the Niners say, well, they had like 8 different stories about why they didn't take the ball second. But the story they ended on eventually was that the defense was tired. And they had just given up a bunch of points and touchdowns and they needed a break. So that's why the Niners should have done this dumb thing and made the wrong decision to give the defense a breather. And, that would have merit, that argument. Tired defense, but the defense gave up a touchdown anyway in overtime. So giving them a rest didn't help anything. I think the reason they should have taken the ball second was your defense is cooked one way or another. Whether you give him a rest, whether you don't give him a rest, it's Patrick Mahomes. You're going to give up a touchdown. They're going to score a touchdown. But what you want is the opportunity to get the ball second. Because if you get the ball second, then you know, and the other team scores a touchdown, then you know, no, if the other team scores anything, then you know you have 4 downs to move the chains every time. There's no decision to make on 4th down. You're going for it. And if the other team kicked a field goal, then you're either, waiting until you're in field goal range to tie the game, or you're going for the win. If the other team scored a touchdown, then you're going for the touchdown and going for the extra for the 2-point conversion to win the game. You know exactly what you have to do. It's much better to be in that position than to be. The Niners got the ball first, drove the field, got the ball into field goal range, didn't convert on 3rd down, kicked a field goal. If they had gotten the ball second and the Chiefs had scored a touchdown and kicked an extra point and we're up 7, Niners go for it on 4th down there. And maybe they convert. And maybe they score a touchdown. And maybe they get a 2-point conversion. But instead, they kicked a field goal, which really was death. And if you don't agree with me, just go back and look at the Chiefs' reaction when the Niners won the coin flip and asked to keep the ball. And it's not that the Niners made a tactical decision. They could say, we wanted to give our defense a blow and be like, all right, well, it was just the wrong tactical decision. That was just an excuse after the fact. They didn't know the rules. That's what I think. They didn't understand that even if they scored a touchdown, they said, didn't Kyle say, well, we don't want the Chiefs to get the ball again. They're going to get the ball again no matter what you do, dude. You think that if you score a touchdown on the first drive that they don't get the ball back? They do. Oh, well, we wanted to get the 3rd possession. What are you talking about? They're not going to give you the ball back. They're going to go for 2. That's why you want the ball second. So you can end the game. You can't end the game in the first possession. You're assuming there's going to be a 3rd possession if the team with the 2nd possession doesn't treat it like sudden death, which they would, which you get to do. Anyway, that to me was the worst decision ever by a coach because it cost the team a championship. And it wasn't like you could say, Pete Carroll, man, you really shouldn't have passed on 2nd down there. You should have handed it off. And there's so many reasons to say that's true. At least he knew the fucking rules. At least it wasn't like, oh, we were allowed to hand the ball off to Marshawn Lynch on 2nd and goal. I actually didn't know that. My bad. Sorry. Now I know. It's a big rule book. That one sort of slipped through the cracks. That's not what happened. Dude didn't know the rule. They lost the Super Bowl. Got to be the worst of all time. But hey, he can win the Super Bowl. He probably won't, but he could win the Super Bowl this year, and then no one remember this. Until then, though, worst thing ever happened. Steven Duryawish says, Grant, I know you hate Kyle, but stop, bro. LOL. I can't stop. I can't stop. I'm saying it's the worst thing that's. Am I wrong? Let me look at the comments. I don't know. It seems like people are debating in the comment section. You be the judge. What was the worst decision ever by a coach? I think it was from Kyle. Or you could go back to when they had the 28-3 lead in Atlanta. But he wasn't the head coach of that team. I feel like this one was better in its worstness. Thank you for watching, everyone. It's 3:55 on the West Coast on a Friday. I'm going to go work out because the grind doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. Thanks for watching. I'll be back.